that would be my piece of advice around failure. Acknowledge it and try and look at it as, all right, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. And there's always a positive that you can take from setbacks and obstacles that you're faced with in your life. My name's Mike Gordon. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, back in the United States. I think for the most part, I'm a pencil artist. I love working in graphite and charcoal. I think graphite is a little bit more forgiving than charcoal as a medium. I dabble around a little bit with painting too, but really my first true love as a kid was always drawing. I think from the time I was like 5 years old, I always had a pencil in my hand. I was obsessed with drawing, and I loved drawing people. That was my thing when I was younger. And I think, my parents would say that when I started, I wasn't very good at all drawing stick figures. But we've certainly come a long way, I think. And yeah, just really, really enjoy the process of sitting down with a blank piece of paper and going from completely blank to a solid form and figure, three-dimensional shape over a pretty long period of time. And truthfully, I love the process more than anything, even the finished product. I think it's so cool just to sit down, take your time. It's a meditative process too. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And you start day zero, and then 2-3 months later, you've got a finished product like this, and it's super rewarding. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So I think as far as my process, like I said, I really love um, doing portraits, figures, um, people in general. I think a huge thing for me too, I've always been really drawn to eyes. I mean, it sounds corny, but you can tell a lot by looking at somebody's eyes, right? Like truly windows to the soul, if you will. And I don't know, I just think there's something really intriguing and interesting for me about looking at an image and trying to capture the feeling, or I guess more so the emotion that's coming through from an image of somebody, right? And I think for me, like doing this image and drawing, the first thing that stuck out to me were the eyes, right? I think I got a lot out of drawing the eyes for this. They took a lot of time to do, but to me, like as soon as I saw this, I was like, you know what? This is the face of shame. This is the face of someone who's done something that they're not all that proud of, probably. At least that was my interpretation of it. So I wanted to put that down on paper in some capacity. I tried to do the best that I could with it. In terms of my process, pretty straightforward, right? I feel like with painting, there's so many different layers that go into making a painting the final product that you see like around here. But with graphite, it's pretty straightforward, right? You start off with an outline, and from there, it's the tedious task of blocking in your shadows, midtones, and highlights. And I think that's the really crucial part, right? I think with hyperrealism specifically, it's really important to nail the contrast. If you don't have good contrast between your dark tones and your highlights, I think you're going to struggle to get images and drawings that really come to life. And that's the goal with hyperrealism ultimately, right? Is to capture things on paper that maybe even a camera wouldn't capture. And you do that by making sure that you've got really rich dark tones, coupled with your midtones, and then really pulling out the highlights too. So a lot of my work, honestly, is I get to the end product through addition by subtraction. So it's laying down layers of graphite powder or with pencil too, and then actually pulling and removing graphite off the paper to reveal the highlights. So a lot of the whites that you see in here were done with an eraser and pulling that out. And then also for some of the more really striking white highlights, I use a white gel pen for that too. And then it's really just working in one piece, one block or square inch, if you will, of the piece of paper at a time. I like to move around. I probably do that the wrong way, honestly. But it's patience. I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would say to anyone like looking to get into drawing and this kind of realism is patience wins the day with this stuff. You can't rush. If you rush, it'll show in your work. So I think be consistent. Be mindful of your strokes too with the pencil. But if you stay consistent every day and you work each square inch and just trying to capture it as real as possible in each square inch, you're going to look up over the course of 3 months, and at the end of that 3 months, you're going to be really happy, I think, with the finished product that you have. NFTs. Oh, that's a great question. I was on a friend's podcast recently, and we talked a lot about this. So I NFTs, in my opinion, are interesting. I think it's interesting that when they first came out, there was a lot of excitement around it. I think as an art form, though, I struggle with it sometimes. However, I will say digital art is still an art form, right? You're still expressing yourself creatively in some capacity. I have no problem with making art and calling that an NFT. But I think what's interesting is the inordinate dollar amount that is associated with NFTs, because at the end of the day, they are just digital representations, right, of sometimes physical artwork. So when you see price tags of, like the Bored Ape NFT, right, that a lot of celebrities were buying, they were buying those for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't know if I could ever justify spending that kind of money on a digital image. But that's just my opinion. I think it's different for everybody. But I do think digital art is still an art form, however people choose to see that. Yeah, great question. To the latter point, definitely not. I would not say that it was always clear that I was going to become an artist. Honestly, truthfully, I still struggle with even calling myself an artist at times just because I'm so new to this. For context, I just started getting back into drawing within the last year and a half. It's been the most rewarding experience for me. I've had so many amazing opportunities come up from getting back into this. I've met so many incredible people too along the way. But if I go back to when I was younger as a kid, like I said, I always loved to do art and draw. My family was super supportive. They mean the world to me. And I would say my elementary school art teacher was probably the first objective, like non-biased individual who kind of was like, hey, you've got something here. And she was always super supportive and helping out my parents with things to put me in. But I have no formal training in art. I never went to school for art. I don't have really an art education background in any capacity. Certainly didn't go to university for it. I got out of school. I did the 9 to 5 job. I'm still doing that, by the way, and I absolutely love my job. Right? I can't say that I'm one of those people that hates my 9 to 5 job. So I think I'm pretty fortunate and blessed in that regard. But yeah, within the last year and a half, I just kind of decided, hey, I'd love to get back into drawing. There's definitely a couple of people that I really admire in the hyperrealism world. One of which is C.J. Henry. Her work is absolutely incredible. And I remember I went to her first exhibit in New York, in Manhattan, back in 2016 with my brother. And it was stunning to see her works. I mean, they're huge, much bigger than this. And they're so strikingly real. It's insane. And I remember looking at my brother and just being like, I think I can do this. And like, we just kind of laughed about it. That was in 2016. Fast forward to today. And I'd like to think that maybe inch by inch, I'm like slowly making moves to get there the way that she is. But so she was a huge inspiration for me too. I kind of drew things off and on in college. I'm 33, about to be 34 in February now. And really, before I finished this, I would say I did maybe 2 smaller drawings before this. But before that, the first thing I actually finished was my freshman year of college. So, I went probably 12, 13 years without actually drawing anything. So yeah, getting back into this, they always say that the things you love to do as a kid is probably a good indicator of, what you're here on this earth to do and what your purpose is. And I can certainly say that I feel hugely aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing. I love this. I'll always have this on the side, even if I stick with my 9 to 5 job. But having this as an outlet has been a really meditative thing for me. Honestly, it makes me feel good. I really enjoy it from start to finish. It's cool that people appreciate it too, but at the end of the day, like I'm doing this just because I honestly love it, and I love the whole process from start to finish. So, um, kind of I guess a unique story in that I'm not a professional artist, but who knows? Maybe one day we'll actually have that formal tag. I guess we'll start with the biggest failure of my life. Ooh, that's a good question. I think unrelated to art, my biggest failure honestly probably came professionally when I was very young. I was 25. I was working for IBM at the time, and I decided to leave IBM to pursue a job at a tech startup. And I got fired within 3 months. And I remember being devastated at the time, thinking like, oh my God, like this, I never thought this would happen to me. I'm a 25-year-old trying to pay rent without a job. And, you know, honestly, much like the title, it was felt kind of shameful. I was like, this is unfortunate. But I look back now and what happened over the course of that year after I got let go of that company, I can genuinely say it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Within 6 months, I actually went back to IBM, and that was the best decision I ever made. It set me up for the rest of my life. Had an amazing career there for another like 7 years in total. So, I think what I will say in terms of like inspiration to other people, don't be so quick to think that negative things that happen in your life are the end of the world or catastrophic. And I think while it's very difficult to see in the moment, the dots do make sense and they do connect later down the line. They always do. And if I look at some of the things that transpired in my life over the last, 2, 3, 4 years, um, I look at where I'm at now, especially with art and drawing, and I can say that if those events never happened, I wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing, feeling like truly fulfilled with my life right now. So um, that would be my piece of advice around failure. Acknowledge it and try and look at it as, all right, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. And there's always a positive that you can take from setbacks and obstacles that you're faced with in your life. In terms of a positive achievement, there have been so many small wins along the way in the last year for me, just related to art specifically. Like I said, I've had so many unique opportunities come up. Got to be in an exhibit in Los Angeles back in the summer, which was incredible. Had some great feedback there. But truthfully, like the last couple of days, last night, especially here at this gallery, have been so eye-opening and incredible for me. And I can honestly say, like, this is probably one of the most memorable experiences that I've had in my life to date. So, and again, I have art to thank for that. So, yeah, that's my big positive, I would say, at the moment so far this year. Ooh, didn't know we were going that deep. Sure. Let's peel that one back. I die tomorrow. What might my legacy be? I, I think there's a good quote. I forget who said it, but they always say that like I think the measure of a good human or how you should want to be remembered is, how many people show up at your funeral, right? In terms of the impact that you might have on people that are certainly close to you, obviously, but your extended social network too. I would hope that people would look at me as somebody who's always willing to put someone else first, kind, empathetic, and loyal. Um, and I think just in terms of my friends too, I value friendship massively. I think a solid support system is huge. And I'd like to think that my friends would remember me as one of their greatest assets in their life, honestly. And just simply put, a genuinely good friend. I'd like to think that people could remember me as somebody that had a really positive outlook and brought a lot of energy into whatever room I was in. Um, and just from a family perspective, I love my family. I wouldn't be here without them, quite frankly, today. Yeah, absolutely. So still working on my website at the moment, but initially you can check me out and some of the rest of my work, my portfolio at artbymike.squarespace.com. And then for more work too and things that I'm currently working on, at least in progress, feel free to give me a follow on social media. Really only on Instagram at m_gordo2. I couldn't believe it, honestly, just because when I walked in and I'd seen all of the work that was going to be here, right? We all saw who the top 30 finalists were, and they were great looking at the images online, but being here in person as soon as I walked into the gallery last night and actually seeing them in person, like some of these are absolutely insane. Some of the paintings here, the photography, it's absolutely stunning. And like I had no expectations whatsoever. But yeah, to hear my name called for second place, and two is my favorite number too, so there you go. But yeah, to hear that was pretty surreal. Like I said, just super appreciative and very grateful for that opportunity. Who knows what'll happen next as a result of it, but just excitement. Honestly, simply put, just a lot of excitement around this. I think I'm energized to go back home and keep working on some drawing projects that I have going on at the moment. And yeah, I mean, I had no idea coming over here when I left. I figured, hey, this is a great excuse to go see Barcelona, which is top of my bucket list. I've always wanted to come here. Beautiful city, beautiful people, great food. So winning or placing in the top three wasn't even on my mind. I was just happy to be part of the 30 finalists. So to be in the top three was really just the icing on the cake, cherry on top, if you will. I signed up for, I think it was an online platform for art open calls. It was either that or an Instagram ad. I can't remember which it was. And then I did some research on the gallery and was like, whoa, this is a really legitimate gallery. And I looked at last year's competition too, and the caliber of work in that competition I thought was outstanding. Really, really remarkable stuff. So to me, I love competition. That's huge for me. So, I think it was motivating just to see like, all right, like, let me give this a shot, shoot my shot and we'll see what happens. So, to be included and considered in this was a huge honor for me. Oh, absolutely. I have a couple friends back home. I can think of one in particular who I know she would probably kill it in this. Honestly, she does drawings too. But yeah, I would highly recommend this to any artist, and quite frankly, of any skill level, emerging, professional, amateur, whatever it may be. I mean, if I can do it, and I'm certainly not a professional, I think anyone that's really working toward their craft and trying to get better, this is a great opportunity to kind of see how you match up. And also, not that it's comparison, but yeah, I think it's cool to be part of it. Full transparency, I actually did not know that, and I guess that goes to show you my naivete of being pretty new in this art world. I didn't know that that was a thing. Um, I think it's great for the artist. I think what the Mrs. Tulip Gallery does is awesome in terms of the exposure. But that it almost seems like a win-win for the artist, right? I mean, they get a cash prize if you're in the top three. You get exposure, and on top of that too, you also get your work exhibited here for 30 days, which is incredible. So I think what this gallery is doing to help out artists of any level, but particularly emerging artists like myself, um, I think that's incredible, and kudos to Mrs. Tulip for doing that. I did not know that that was did not know that was a thing. Yeah, I mean, given that it's an art competition, I think the judging should be strictly based off the merit of the artwork that's in front of the juror, right? We're not judging people. We really, I mean, we all judge, right? That's part of being human. But at the end of the day, um, if you're in any competition, regardless of whether or not it's an art competition, if it's music, if it's writing, whatever it may be, that individual should be judged on the quality and merit of their work that they're delivering and putting forth, not who they are based off of attributes that at the end of the day are pretty trivial in the long run.